All right, ready for this? Today we are doing a deep dive on animals you just wouldn't want to be compared to.
Well, let's be good.
Yeah, like those creatures that kind of get the short end of the stick in the looks department.
Right, right.
So we're looking at this top 10 list from the Top 10's website. It's all about which animals people find, well, the most offensive to be compared to.
Interesting.
I know, kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
But it actually gets
What's that?
pretty interesting when you
Yeah.
really think about it.
I bet.
So let's kick things off with I guess you could say like the reigning champion of, unflattering comparisons, the blobfish.
The blobfish. Okay.
Yeah. And the people on the top tens, they did not hold back,
I bet they didn't.
calling it slimy with a blob-shaped head, a wide nose that hangs down, and even a weird gray thing near its mouth. I mean,
Ouch.
it's rough. But why? Why the blobfish?
Well, I mean, if we're just going off pictures, it's easy to see why it gets such the bad rap. But here's where it gets interesting. That appearance of the blobfish, it's actually a really brilliant adaptation to its environment. Imagine living thousands of feet below the surface.
Oh, wow.
The pressure is enormous.
Yeah.
That gelatinous, almost jelly-like body helps the blobfish survive those crushing depths.
So it's perfectly suited for its home.
Yeah.
But then we drag it up to the surface and it just kind of
Right.
helps.
Precisely, yeah. The pressure change causes its body to lose its structure, giving it that, shall we say, less than photogenic look we see in all those photos. It's a bit like taking a deep-sea diver out of their suit, The results aren't pretty.
It's almost like two different creatures, depending on where it is.
Right.
All right, next up is the ferret. Now, this one really threw me off because some people on the list actually thought ferrets were kind of cute. Cool pets, even.
Real.
Yeah. Comments like, skinny with a baby face and just really cute. Some even said it would be an honor to be compared to one.
Interesting.
So, I don't know, is it an insult or a compliment?
Well, it's a great example of how subjective these comparisons can be, right? I mean, ferrets are known for being playful, curious. Historically, they were even used for hunting because their slender bodies allowed them to get into small spaces.
Yeah.
And those baby faces are actually quite expressive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then there's that one comment, they do smell bad, though. Yes, I guess you can't win them all.
Well, it just goes to show, perceptions can vary even within one species.
Yeah.
But it also brings up a bigger point. Why are we considering some animal comparisons insults in the first place?
It's true. It's not like they're trying to offend anyone.
Right. It's more about us, projecting our own ideas onto them.
Yeah.
And it often comes down to humans associating certain physical features with negative traits. Take the sloth, for example. The top tens says it has a weird, wide mouth, really long nails, and of course, being really slow.
Right, right.
We tend to equate that slowness with laziness or even stupidity, which is completely unfair to the sloth. Their slow metabolism, that's just an adaptation to a low-energy diet.
It makes you wonder if we moved at a sloth's pace, would we judge them differently?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these animals are called offensive based on, human standards of beauty.
Yeah.
And that can be pretty arbitrary. Like the octopus, it gets called out for its, quote, gigantic bump as a forehead.
Right.
And the fact that it doesn't have like a distinct nose or mouth.
Yeah.
And then the poor cockroach, just instantly associated with filth.
Right.
When in reality, both creatures, like biologically speaking, are fascinating.
Absolutely.
Like the octopus, so intelligent, its camouflage abilities are incredible. And cockroaches, I mean, they're survivors. They've been around forever.
Millions of years.
Speaking of unexpected entries, we have a few animals that are kind of surprising to see on this list. The donkey makes an appearance. Apparently because Gordon Ramsay likes to use it as an insult.
Oh, right.
And even humans are on there, which is, interesting.
That is interesting, yeah. It shows how cultural context really shapes how we see animals, Insults often reflect more of society's biases than any real negative quality in the animal itself.
So it's more about us, them.
Absolutely. Our understanding of nature is totally filtered through our own experiences and beliefs. It makes you wonder whose insecurities are really on display here.
That's a good point. Okay, before we move on, I got to ask about the hammerhead shark.
Okay.
I mean, the top tens describes its head as looking like a Minecraft pickaxe, which honestly,
Yeah.
I kind of see it.
It's definitely unique, but that shape is actually pretty ingenious from an evolutionary standpoint. Those wide-set eyes give the hammerhead this broader field of vision. It can spot prey more easily. And all those pores on its head, they're electrosensory organs, so they can detect electrical fields given off by other animals, even if they're hiding in the sand.
So what might seem goofy to us
Right.
is actually a high-tech hunting tool.
Exactly, yeah. Nature rarely makes mistakes. Form follows function.
All right, so we've covered a few of the, I guess, top contenders, but this list has a ton of other intriguing creatures. Like, we've got the anglerfish with its, quote, toothpick teeth and bioluminescent lure. Talk about a mood killer on a date. The wrinkle-faced bat with its, and I quote this, pineapple skin texture. And according to the top tens, not a great smell. Even the goat and the cow get called out, often for being stubborn or overweight, respectively. Seems like no animal is safe.
It really makes you wonder, right, what animal comparisons would you find offensive and why?
Yeah, that's a good question for you to think about. Because this deep dive, it's not just about, quirky animal features.
No.
It's about how our own perceptions shape how we see the world around us. And maybe even ourselves. It's funny. We talk about all these animals people find offensive to be compared to, but we don't really stop to think about why.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about a blobfish or a hammerhead that really gets that reaction out of us?
It is fascinating, isn't it? I think it kind of gets to like a deeper part of being human.
Yeah.
We're always, categorizing, judging the world around us.
Yeah.
And animals are no exception. We put value on certain traits.
Yeah.
Beauty, strength, intelligence.
Uh-huh.
And then we use those to, build hierarchies, even in the animal kingdom.
So we're kind of like forcing our human values onto these animals.
Exactly.
We decide what's desirable, what's not,
Yeah.
and then we use those judgments to form opinions.
Right. And a lot of times those judgments are based on like surface level things,
Yeah.
appearance. We forget that nature doesn't really operate on the same, aesthetic principles as a fashion magazine.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
judging a fish by how well it climbs a tree. It totally misses what makes that fish, unique
Yeah.
and successful
In its own space.
in its own environment.
Exactly. Like take the anglerfish.
Okay.
It's on the list because of its, quote, toothpick teeth and that bioluminescent lure,
Right.
which, let's face it, not the most romantic image.
No, not real.
But, down in the pitch black depths of the ocean, that lure is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's attracting prey. It's about surviving,
Right.
not winning a beauty contest.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about animals like the wrinkle-faced bat?
Mm-hmm.
The top tens, they describe its skin as having a pineapple texture.
Right.
And apparently, it doesn't smell too great.
Uh-huh.
Those seem like pretty objective reasons to not want to be compared to one.
I get where you're coming from, but even those perceptions are coming from, like, our human point of view.
Okay.
What we think is unpleasant is often based on what our culture taught us. Like, in some cultures, strong smells, they're seen as, powerful
Oh, interesting.
or even spiritual.
So what might totally repulse one person
Yeah.
could be normal
Yeah.
or even attracted to someone else.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. It brings us back to why we use animals to insult each other in the first place. What purpose does it serve?
Is it just a way to, express dislike
It can be.
or make someone feel bad?
Yeah, but it's often a bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
Sometimes those animal insults, they're used to point out what someone sees as a weakness or a flaw in someone's character. Like calling someone a chicken implies they're a coward.
Uh-huh.
Or calling someone a pig might suggest, greed or gluttony.
Right. So we're using these animal stereotypes
Yeah.
as like shorthand for human behaviors
Right.
that we think are negative.
And it's important to remember that those stereotypes, they often come from a very limited understanding of the animals themselves.
Right.
We reduce these complex creatures with
Right.
all their adaptations and behaviors to, these simple caricatures.
It's like taking the easy way out instead of really like digging into the nuances of how people act.
Right, and by doing that, we're not just, continuing harmful stereotypes about animals, but we're also limiting our own understanding of the world around us.
It's funny. We've been talking a lot about like the negatives of animal comparisons.
Right.
But are there any animals that people actually want to be like?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the lion, right?
Yeah.
It's associated with courage, strength, leadership, or the eagle.
Right.
Freedom, vision, power.
It seems like we're more willing to embrace the good stuff with certain animals, but we jump on the bad when it comes to others.
It goes back to that idea of, human values and hierarchies.
Right.
We admire animals that have qualities we want for ourselves,
Yeah.
but the ones that seem, less appealing, well,
Yeah.
they get put at the bottom.
It's kind of sad.
Uh-huh.
Every animal has something to offer,
Yeah.
even those that might not, strike us as beautiful or whatever.
Yeah.
At first,
That's why it's important to look at the natural world with, curiosity and an open mind.
yeah.
We got to move past those surface judgments and appreciate the, the diversity and the complexity of life.
And maybe by, learning to appreciate the diversity of the animal kingdom,
Yeah.
we can learn to be more accepting, more understanding of the diversity within our own species.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
That by embracing those differences in nature, we can come to a greater understanding of ourselves and each other.
Okay, so we've looked at the reasons behind animal insults, the cultural stuff that shapes our opinions, even the positive side of these comparisons.
Yeah.
What does it all mean for us?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that these comparisons, good or bad,
Right.
they're reflections of our own values and beliefs.
Yeah.
They show our biases, our insecurities, and our often, superficial ways of judging others.
So next time you hear someone getting compared to an animal,
Yeah.
whether it's you or someone else, take a second to think about what it really means.
Yeah.
What is the speaker trying to say?
Uh-huh.
And what does that say about their view of the world?
It's about being more aware of the language we use
Right.
and the effect it can have, on others and ourselves.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's not about the animals.
No.
It's about us.
It is.
Understanding our place
Yeah.
and our relationship with all the amazing life around us.
And maybe, just maybe, by, challenging those ingrained biases and really seeing the beauty in every creature,
Yeah.
we can start to build a world that's more compassionate
Yeah.
and understanding for everyone.
Well said. Now, I don't want to give too much away,
Okay.
but I think our listener has a really interesting question for us. One that might just turn everything we've talked about on its head. Stay tuned. Okay, so we really went deep on animal insults, blobfish, cockroaches, even donkeys. But now we're going to flip the script because you, our listener, you've asked a really interesting question. I think it sums up everything we've been talking about.
Ooh, I'm curious.
You asked, if you could choose an animal to be compared to, which one would it be and why? I mean, talk about turning the tables.
Right. That's great. It makes us think about what we want to be, not what we don't want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what animal comes to mind for you? Like, what good traits would you hope to, kind of embody?
That's tough. There are so many amazing animals, but if I had to pick, I think I'd go with the octopus.
The octopus, the one with the gigantic bump forehead. Bold choice. Why?
Well, look past the looks, right? The octopus is super smart, really adaptable. It can figure out problems, camouflage itself, even change its skin to look like different things. That, to me, says flexibility and resilience.
I see what you mean. Like, be water, my friend. The octopus is like that. It just goes with the flow, finds a way to deal with stuff.
Exactly. Plus, they have 3 hearts. How resilient is that?
Okay, you've actually made me appreciate the octopus. What about you? Any animals you'd welcome the comparison to?
After all this talk about the sloth being slow and steady, I think there's something to that. Maybe a little sloth energy wouldn't be so bad these days.
I hear that. Slowing down, being in the moment, appreciating the little things, that's something I want too. And hey, energy efficiency. Talk about sustainable living.
Right. It's amazing how this one question changes how we see these animals. We start to see the good in stuff we might have thought was bad before.
It shows that beauty, in value, really depends on who's looking, right? And maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of every animal in all of us. The important thing is to see those qualities, the good and the bad, and use them to be our best selves.
Well said. And maybe by, embracing those animal parts of ourselves, we can close that gap between us and nature. See ourselves as part of it, not separate from it.
What a great thought. So as you go about your day, we want you to think about the animal you want to be like. What do you admire in the animal kingdom? And how can you live that out in your own life?
Remember, it's not about being perfect or fitting some mold. It's about appreciating the amazing variety of life in ourselves and all around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.